right, fellow English teachers, Kristian Kuhn coming at you again, affectionately known as the Bob Ross of composition. And in this video, we are going to gamify some poetry analysis. So to lay some groundwork, I'm going to first explain why I do this instead of like skilling and drilling and just handing out handouts of multiple choice practice sheets. Basically, my philosophy as to why I even bother with Plato discussions, gamification, edutainment. And then I'll show you how we break down 5 contemporary poems and gamify them set to we can either use Connect 4 or Jeopardy. So before I dive in, let me first say this. Please subscribe to the channel. It's called Kristian Kuhn, the Bob Ross of composition. We eclipsed the 20K mark and looking to grow this baby. So please subscribe, tell your friends, colleagues, students far and wide about this channel. So here's my philosophy about gamification and traditional discussion modalities. So early in my teaching career, I always felt kind of like a lousy discussion facilitator with regards to Harkness discussions, Socratic seminars, and fish bowls. And here's the reason why. In my teaching practicums, my mentor teacher referred to this as wagon wheeling. And what that means is this. Teacher asks question, and like a spoke, it goes out to one student. It comes back to teacher. Teacher asks a question. It just goes back and forth, back and forth. So basically, a one-way conversation with a particular student or two. And then the other thing I don't like about those modalities and why I haven't had great success with them is that typically 1, 2, 3 students monopolize the conversation while the rest of the kids just kind of blend in with the wallpaper and don't participate. And as a teacher, that's never good because I have no idea what they're taking away from the discussion whatsoever. So from a pedagogical standpoint, I did not have much success with it. It wasn't until I began to gamify my discussions, and it's something that I call the Plato discussion, that I really felt like I was having success in seeing learning occur right before my eyes. So what I'll do for this is show you how to gamify it a couple of ways. First, here's my thinking. I like to have students ask the questions for the games. And what you're going to see with the 5 poems that I've selected here is that some of the questions are mine and some of the questions are the kids. Just to give you kind of a reality, like a real life occurrence of when I leave students to ask the questions. Sometimes they don't ask the right questions, and I have to step in and make sure that they're ascertaining the full meaning of the poem. So in order to get to the complexity and the meaning, it's a blend of my questions and their questions. I like this because students need to do the heavy lifting. I think that oftentimes that balance gets out of kilter a little bit, where teachers doing like 99.9% of the heavy lifting. And again, pedagogically, that's not good. So I always like the ratio to, at bare minimum, to be 60% on the student, 40% on me. And in the Plato discussion, it's about 80% on the student, 20% on me. I also find that when I combine the elements of collaboration and competition, kids engage, and that's when the real learning occurs. Now, here's the kicker. As you look at these 5 poems, begin to look at the types of questions my students are asking, and then, the requisite answers. And I say this all the time, pattern, 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 pattern. There's only so many things that a poet can do theoretically, technically, and the same devices, terms, techniques keep recurring over and over and over again. So by virtue of practicing Plato discussions, not only do students become better readers, they become better writers because good readers are good writers, but they also in turn become better multiple choice test takers. So very cool. So let me emphasize that again. Good readers dig deep. Good writers are good readers. And all of this really helps students with their multiple choice test taking skills. So there's many ways that you can gamify this. And what you can do with this if you download the slides is there's 5 questions per poem, and you can just plug them into a Jeopardy board if you want to. So there are some good ones on Teacher Pay Teacher. I can't put them in my YouTube channel because I don't have copyright ownership of them. So you can literally just download any, all 5 poems and plug them into a Jeopardy template. But for the purposes of this particular demonstration, I'm going to show you how to gamify it using Connect 4. In the AP Facebook groups, a lot of teachers are using Jenga. I do the same. Use Hungry Hippos. Again, it does not matter how you gamify it. I use tic-tac-toe. I got cornhole. It just doesn't matter. So here are the 5 poems that we're going to gamify. My Papa's Waltz, Jorge the Church Janitor Finally Quits by Jorge Espada, The Portrait by Stanley Kuhn, Not Bad Dad, Not Bad Dad by Jan Heller Levi, Tupac Shakur's The Rose That Grew from a Crack in the Concrete, and then Sharon Old's The Clasp. And what I'll do is I'll just show you the questions for 2 of the poems, and then if you want to download the rest, it's in the descriptions below. All right, let's play ball. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to start with a poem that I think most of you are probably not familiar with. It's called The Clasp by Sharon Olds, and in the description below, I have a Google Doc with all 5 poems on it, so you can just click down below and have access to that. So let me show you the games that we have right here, and or the questions, I mean, and you can get a sense of what my students are doing. And the first question is this: in order to ascertain the poem's meaning, one must first identify the 3 characters. Who is she? Who is he? Who is the narrator? And I love this question because this often eludes kids when they read this poem. And this is, I think this is the type of poem that you would see on a New York State Regents exam, maybe even like an AP exam, because it does have some trickeration to it. And you have to identify that the she's the daughter, the he's the son, and the mom's the narrator. And for whatever reason, that completely goes over kids' heads and subsequently leads to misreads or incomplete reads. Question number 2. Explain how the setting and conflict intersect with each other. Use the text to support your answer. Again, this is a student question, and I love it because you got to begin to see how the terms, devices, techniques intersect and interface with each other, and the setting and the conflict definitely go hand in hand. Question number 3. The first sentence is a very long run-on sentence, which is also truncated by the frequent employment of the comma. Syntactically, how does this create meaning in the work as a whole? So that's my question. I'm finding, at least in my classroom with my on-level juniors, they're really not making good syntactical reads, so I'm having to guide them a little bit towards those reads. And I think that first sentence adds to the confessional tone of the piece. And again, begin to see how terms, devices, techniques interrelate with each other. So that long sentence definitely gets into that guilt-ridden, justifiable, confessional tone. Number 4. Is this a poem about love or abuse? Defend your answer with the text. Good question. And then we had the exact same question for My Papa's Waltz. So that's what I'm talking about, the overlap between their reads. They become better readers. And question number 5, the last word of the poem is very pregnant. What is, in quotes, this? Use the text to help support your answer. So Sharon Old says, near the source of love was this. And, when you throw it back to question 4 about love and abuse, how could an act of, perceivable abuse be portrayed as, or, perceived as an act of love? So I'll show you the questions for one more poem. And again, I'm going to choose one that you're probably not familiar with. Jorge the Church Janitor Finally Quits. So when I gamify poems, I usually choose things that I think would be appropriate and might be featured on a Regents exam or an AP literature exam. And this is a pretty easy, accessible poem. It does have some trickeration to it, but I think it would most likely appear on like an on-level junior type exam. So here's question number 1. If we were to pull out a map, we would be hard-pressed to find the country of janitors. What is Espada's intent in naming his origins in this way? Look up the word euphemism. Does this qualify as one? And clearly that's my question. Students missed that. They didn't pick it up. And in the poem it says, I must be from the country of janitors. And it's a euphemistic way to basically get to the racial element of the piece, and a lot of students miss that, so I had to throw that question in there. Number 2, the setting of the poem is a church. Explain the irony of this situation. Refer directly to the text. And number 3 says, analyze and interpret the following image. I host the fiesta of the bathroom, stirring the toilet bowl like a punch bowl. So one of the things my students do when they ask questions is they find the real pregnant diction and just ask that question construct. Analyze and interpret the following image or the following diction, which they did there. So that's a really important line of the poem. And then number 4, this poem features objectification and personification. Identify both instances and explain how each element creates meaning in the work as a whole. So good student question. And again, they're making the observations. And again, think in terms of multiple choice test prep, right? If they can make those identifications, they can anticipate the questions. And the last one for this particular poem, the last line of the poem, the last line of the poem is, they will call it Jorge. Explain the irony of this. And I really liked the job my students did with this poem, because oftentimes tones like sarcasm and irony go right over their heads, and they picked it up. So the third poem is Not Bad Dad, Not Bad by Jan Heller Levi, and then I got 5 questions for that. The fourth poem is Tupac, The Rose That Grew from Concrete, and the last one, I saved the hardest one for last, My Papa's Waltz, and that likewise has 5 real good, juicy, pithy questions. All right, that's it from here. Happy teaching, happy writing. If you need to reach out for me for any reason, you can feel free to drop me an email at teachingwritingcoach@gmail.com. I also have a web page, www.teachinghowtowrite.com. I do a lot of professional development throughout the calendar year, and I've teamed up with, companies like Perfection Learning, Applied Practice, even work for NWP, NCTE, the College Board, and I do a lot of webinars for them. Most of them are free, so I have a calendar of events there so you can keep track of my comings and goings. And then one of the things that I'm going to start doing as of right now, a lot of teachers approach me and say, I really want to take your Teach It Right mastermind, but I don't want to be in a class of 25 other people and listen to, content that I will never teach. And I'm like, perfect. All right. Would you like to do a one-on-one mentorship? And they say, yes, yes, yes. So I'm formally offering this up as of this moment. It's called the Teach It Right 5-week one-to-one mentorship. So if you would like to work with me and become versed in my heuristics, my Bob Ross modeling, my Plato's Plato discussion, Word Study Academy, Nuance Academy, the whole gamut, then we can work one-on-one and tailor make a course to your needs. I'm also offering a self-paced course that runs you through everything. AP Lit, AP Lang, On Level, Word Study Academy, Nuance Academy, Plato's Plato discussion, the whole kit and caboodle. It's a very comprehensive self-paced course. And then the last thing that I'm doing is, teachers have asked a lot for this, and I've been doing this quite a bit, is the alternative grading methods 2-hour intensive one-on-one. Teachers want help with their grading load and want to see, concretely hands-on how I would plow through their stack of essays for their particular course loads, in terms of the content, the subject of what they're teaching, but also the amount of students that they have. So I've been offering that one-on-one as well. So you can go to my webpage, teachinghowtowrite.com, to get more information on that. And if you have any questions, drop me an email. That's it from here. I will keep them coming in the days, weeks, months, years to come. Take care.